I swear, the universe has a sick sense of humor. Picture this. I'm standing in my own kitchen, towel still damp around my neck, holding a mug of coffee like it's the last bit of warmth left in my life. And across from me, my wife, Vanessa, laughs. Not the kind of laugh you'd want to bottle up and keep forever. No, this one was sharp, dry, like sandpaper against tile. "You're lucky I even let you touch me," she says. That's what came out of her mouth. Like I was some desperate fan who won backstage passes to her affection. After years of covering her overdraft fees, fixing her car at midnight, and swallowing her excuses for every business dinner that ended at 2 a.m., I was lucky. She tossed her blouse into the dryer, humming like she hadn't just gutted me with one sentence. And I didn't argue, didn't yell, didn't break. I folded my t-shirt, the one from the state fair years ago before her veneers, before her Pilates instructor with the name of a bad cologne, before she stopped asking how my day was. I folded it neat and walked out. In the hallway, her phone buzzed. Another giggle. Another, "You're so bad" winking face from whoever she thought was her escape hatch. I didn't need to see the screen. I knew the sound of her lies by now. The mirror by the stairs caught me on the way down. Wrinkles, sure. Slower than I was at 40, maybe. But I'm the guy who builds machines that carve titanium thinner than a hair. I lead a team of men who don't miss measurements. I wasn't some slob begging for her crumbs. But in that house, I was a placeholder. And placeholders don't argue. We execute. Down in my office, I opened the drawer I hadn't touched in months. Inside was a small oak box I carved after retirement. I meant it to hold cufflinks. Instead, it was going to hold the truth. The kind of truth that cuts cleaner than any argument. The laptop hummed awake, and there it was, the folder I'd been quietly filling for months. Not because I was paranoid, because I was prepared. Receipts, screenshots, a synced iPad she didn't know about. I had the pattern, the timeline, the digital fingerprints of a woman who thought she was clever. That night, when she floated down in her smug little robe, pretending to be affectionate, she asked, "You didn't say good night." "I figured you were tired of touching me," I said, smiling as if it was a joke. She blinked. "You're being dramatic." I nodded slowly. "Because men like me don't need second chances. We need evidence." And in that moment, I knew the game had already started. She thought she was the player, but she had no idea she was just the piece. The trick with betrayal is that it never shows up with a neon sign. It seeps in like a leaky pipe, quiet, steady, until one day you're standing ankle-deep in water wondering when the floor gave out. Vanessa's leaky pipe was named Ryan. Contractor. Fixer of decks, breaker of homes. I offered him a beer once while he was hammering boards in my backyard. Thought he was a good kid. Turns out he was just measuring different wood. I found their messages on the iPad, one of those accidental syncs she never noticed. To her, tech was chargers and Instagram filters. To me, it was leverage. Screenshots stacked like dominoes waiting to fall. "Can't wait to see you outside the sheets for once LOL." Him. Thumbs up, hotel bathroom selfie. Same wallpaper I'd seen at the Burstone. Lavender and desperation. That hotel's signature scent. You'd think a man would crumble seeing his wife's sweet talk to another guy. Me? I cataloged it. I'm not a man who reacts. I'm a man who builds. And right now, I was building a case. That evening, while Vanessa was perched on the couch pretending to care about some real estate podcast, I slid into the chair opposite her. Calm. Even. "You ever think about honesty?" I asked. Her eyes flicked up, bored. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Means one day," I said, "you'll wish you told the truth before I found it myself." She laughed, actually laughed. "You sound like some detective in a bad movie. Honestly, you've been paranoid lately." I let the silence stretch until it made her squirm. Then I smiled. "Good night, Vanessa." When she went upstairs, I stayed in the office. Printer humming, screenshots stacking, emails sliding into neat chronological order. Every hotel bill, every flight that didn't match her seminar schedule. Celeste, the realtor friend, had even CC'd her on messages about fun weekends in Ridge Hill. Sloppy. By midnight, the oak box wasn't empty anymore. It had weight. Evidence. Proof. I closed the lid, polished the brass hinge with my thumb, and whispered something she'd never hear until it was too late. "You think you're 2 steps ahead. I'm already at the finish line." The next morning, she floated into the kitchen like she was auditioning for Perfect Wife. Hair in a messy bun. Humming, stealing a bite of my toast as if the night before hadn't happened. "You're sweet," she said absently, scrolling through her phone. "Sweet. Right. That's what you call a man you're quietly replacing." I slid her a mug of coffee, kissed the top of her head, and said nothing. Let her think the performance worked. That was the beauty of silence. It lulls the guilty into confidence. Later that day, I called Marcus, my lawyer. He picked up on the first ring. "Morning. What's the word?" "Not yet," I said. "But we're getting close. I'll have everything you need soon." "Good. Keep it quiet. When it breaks, we go clean and fast." I hung up, tucked the phone into my pocket, and felt a strange calm settle in. Because now it wasn't just suspicion, it was a project. And projects are my language. That evening, Vanessa tried to bait me into one of her little power games. She came down in a dress I hadn't seen in years, heels clicking across the hardwood. "I'm going out," she said. "With who?" "Clients." "Don't wait up." "Which ones?" Her eyes narrowed for a split second, too quick for most to notice. "But I build machines for a living. I see small shifts. I see flaws." "Celeste," she said. "Tell her I said hi." She smirked like she'd scored a point, walked out with perfume trailing behind her like smoke. At 8:43 p.m., I pulled up the iPad. Location sharing was still on. Funny thing about liars, they forget the boring details. She wasn't at Ridge Hill. She wasn't at any client dinner. She was parked at the Burstone again. Room 217. I saved the pin, dropped it in the June Justice folder, and sat back in my chair. My jaw didn't clench. My pulse didn't spike. Just steady. Because when you already know how the play ends, the middle act is just entertainment. At 11:12, she texted me. "Running late. Don't wait up. Love you." Love. That was rich. I typed back one word. "Okay." No questions. No accusations. Just the kind of message a placeholder husband would send. And she believed it. Meanwhile, in the oak box, her love was printed on letterhead and time-stamped with GPS coordinates. And for the first time in months, I actually slept well. The trick to setting a trap isn't the bait, it's the patience. Any fool can dangle something shiny and hope the other party lunges. The real art is making sure they believe they're the ones hunting, right up until the steel snaps around their ankle. That week, I began laying mine. Quietly, methodically. On Monday, while Vanessa was off showing homes in her Range Rover. Funny how those showings never appeared on her brokerage calendar. I visited the bank. I had already spoken with Marcus, my lawyer, about preparing a separate account. Not to hide, I told him, just to relocate. He chuckled, said he liked my phrasing. Every dollar that mattered, savings, investments, liquid assets, I shifted into an account under my name only. Clean, legal, already notarized. She wouldn't notice. She hadn't checked our finances in years. In her mind, money was something that just appeared, like refilled wine glasses or the groceries she assumed stocked themselves. Tuesday, I had lunch with Celeste. Yes, that's Celeste, the realtor friend who loved playing messenger pigeon for Vanessa's little escapades. She thought I invited her to talk about refinancing a rental property. Instead, I asked her about Ridge Hill retreats. She nearly choked on her kale salad. "Oh, Vanessa mentioned those. Just girls' weekends." Girls' weekends with hotel receipts in her name. Second driver added. I asked casually, sipping my coffee. Her eyes darted, fork trembling. She tried to recover with a laugh. "You're really detail-oriented. Occupational hazard." I let her squirm. I didn't need a confession. I only needed the guilt to settle into her bones, so next time Vanessa confided in her, she'd hesitate. That hesitation was enough. Liars thrive on accomplices who never blink. When one of them starts blinking, cracks spread. Wednesday night. Vanessa strutted through the door at 1:15 a.m., heels in hand, mascara smudged like a bad painting. She expected me to be asleep. I wasn't. I sat at the kitchen table, paperwork spread neatly in front of me, tax returns, investment portfolios, property deeds. She froze. "What are you doing up?" "Organizing," I said. She tilted her head, confused. She wasn't used to me answering like that. Usually, I'd mutter something bland, like, "just working." But now, every word was deliberate. She didn't know what to do with deliberate. "Can't this wait until morning?" she asked, softening her tone like sugar could dissolve suspicion. I stacked the papers calmly. "No, some things can't wait." She lingered in the doorway for a moment, searching my face for cracks. Finding none, she gave a little shrug and drifted upstairs. The scent of cheap perfume clung to the air. I didn't follow. Thursday, I visited the IT guy from my old company. He owed me a favor, one I earned when I kept him from getting fired after a slip-up with a client's database. I handed him a flash drive labeled innocuously as Photos 2019. Inside, every screenshot, every time-stamped message, every breadcrumb from Vanessa's trail. Encrypted, I told him. Multiple copies. One in the cloud, one on a dead-drop server, one on this drive. He whistled. Man, what did she do? Nothing, I said flatly. Yet. Friday, the final piece, a dinner invitation. I told Vanessa I'd booked us a table at the same restaurant where we celebrated our 10th anniversary. I pitched it like reconciliation. We've been distant, I told her, and I want to fix that. She lit up like she'd won. Finally, she said, rushing to the mirror to check her hair. She had no idea the place wasn't just sentimental, it was strategic. I knew the manager. I knew the staff. And I knew exactly where the security cameras pointed. That night, she walked in wearing the red dress she hadn't worn in years. The one she probably saved for hotel rooms that didn't have my name on the reservation. She looked at me like she was already planning her triumphant monologue about new beginnings. Halfway through the appetizers, I leaned back and asked, "So, who's Ryan?" Her fork froze midair. She blinked once, twice, then forced a laugh. "Ryan? Who?" "Contractor. Tall. Built us a deck. You liked his work." She smiled, tight, brittle. "You're imagining things." I nodded slowly, as if conceding. Then I slid my phone across the table. Open screen. Her messages with Ryan staring back at her in glowing blue bubbles. The blood drained from her face. She looked at me, then at the phone, then back at me. "Why are you snooping?" she hissed. I almost laughed. That was her defense? Not denial. Not even guilt. Just offense that I'd been clever enough to catch her. "Because men like me," I said quietly, "don't snoop. We collect." For a long moment, she didn't speak. Then she forced her lips into a smirk. "You won't leave me. You wouldn't dare. You need me." I studied her carefully. The arrogance, the certainty that she held the upper hand. That was her fatal flaw, believing the game was still hers to play. The check arrived. I paid in cash, leaving the receipt folded neatly on the table. She thought the night ended there. She thought she'd go home, cry crocodile tears, seduce me into silence, and bury the evidence under another layer of lies. But she didn't notice the tiny red light blinking on the restaurant's camera above us. She didn't know I'd arranged for the footage to be pulled, time-stamped, and filed next to the messages in a folder labeled Vanessa, Exhibit A. When we got home, she stormed upstairs, slamming doors, muttering about betrayal and paranoia. I let her rant. I sat in my office, oak box open, files stacked like a soldier's arsenal. And as her voice echoed down the hall, sharp and venomous, I whispered to myself, "Keep talking, Vanessa." Every word makes the snap sharper. Because the trap was set. All that was left was for her to keep walking into it. The weekend came, and with it, Vanessa's performance art. She moved through the house like an actress rehearsing for a role she hadn't quite memorized. Her voice was softer, her smile wider, her hand brushing my arm like we were newlyweds again. To anyone else, it might have looked like reconciliation. To me, it looked like what it was, desperation disguised as charm. You see, liars always tighten their act when they sense they're being watched. They don't change their habits, they just rehearse harder. And when someone rehearses too much, their improvisation disappears. That's when you catch them. Sunday night, she staged her ambush. Candlelight dinner at home. Pasta she barely knew how to boil. Wine poured into the good glasses we hadn't touched since our last anniversary. She leaned across the table, eyes big, voice trembling just the right amount. "I know things have been rough between us, and I know you've been suspicious, but I want you to trust me. Really trust me." I twirled the pasta on my fork, nodded thoughtfully, and said nothing. Silence makes the guilty sprint. Sure enough, she leaned in further. "I think we should reset. Clean slate. Forget all the little misunderstandings." Misunderstandings. That was her word for hotel rooms, late-night messages, and lipstick stains I never left behind. "Clean slate," I repeated, setting down the fork. "That what you want?" She smiled, relieved. "Yes, exactly. We can start fresh, like none of this ever happened." I let the pause hang just long enough to make her squirm. Then I smiled back. "All right, clean slate." Her shoulders relaxed. She actually believed she'd won. That night, she tried to bridge the distance with physical affection. I played along just enough to sell the act. Because in chess, sometimes you sacrifice a pawn to set up checkmate. Monday morning, I forgot my phone at home. On purpose. Vanessa found it buzzing on the counter. She opened it. Of course she did. And there it was, a conveniently placed text from Marcus, my lawyer. Paperwork ready. She won't know what hit her. I knew she'd see it. I knew she'd panic. And right on cue, she stormed into my office that evening, voice sharp. What's this about paperwork? What's ready? What aren't you telling me? I looked up from my desk, calm as ever. Nothing important. Just business. Don't lie to me, she snapped, slamming her hands on the desk. The irony nearly made me laugh. She, of all people, demanding honesty. You think I don't see what you're doing? She hissed. Checking up on me. Setting traps. You're trying to make me the bad guy here. I folded my hands, leaned back, and said, I don't need to make you anything. You've done the work yourself. Her jaw clenched. She realized she'd overplayed her hand, shown too much. So she switched tactics. Tears. Right on schedule. You're so cold, she whispered, voice cracking. I don't even recognize you anymore. I handed her a tissue box. Maybe you never knew me. She didn't take the tissue. She stormed out, muttering something about how she wouldn't be destroyed by paranoia. Perfect. Because the more defensive she got, the sloppier she'd become. Tuesday was proof. She left for another client meeting. Except this time, she wasn't careful. She didn't know I had the Range Rover's GPS quietly synced to my laptop. At 7:12 p.m., she wasn't at any client's house. She was at Ryan's apartment. 3rd floor, corner unit. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. The digital trail was already enough. But I did something better. I texted her while she was there. Don't forget the milk on your way home. She replied instantly. Of course. Be home soon. The timestamp, the location ping, and the lie, perfectly aligned. Another brick in the wall. By Wednesday, she was unraveling. I found her pacing in the living room, chewing her lip, phone clutched in her hand like a lifeline. You've changed, she said finally. You're not the man I married. I smiled faintly. No, I'm the man you underestimated. That shut her up. For a moment, anyway. But the real kicker came Thursday. I arranged a little meeting with Ryan. He didn't know it was a meeting, of course. He thought it was a job. I called him up, told him I needed a consultation for an addition to the house. He showed up in his dusty pickup, tool belt slung low, grin wide like a man who thinks he's getting away with something. We shook hands on the porch. I kept my smile steady. Appreciate you coming out. Vanessa speaks highly of you. He smirked, just a flicker, but I caught it. Arrogance always betrays itself in small doses. We walked around the backyard. I asked him about load-bearing beams, drainage systems, questions I already knew the answers to. He stumbled through them, trying to sound competent. Meanwhile, I studied him. The man my wife thought was worth dismantling a marriage over was barely clever enough to check if a joist was level. At one point, he said, Vanessa's lucky to have a husband who doesn't ask too many questions. I tilted my head. Oh, I ask questions. I just prefer the answers in writing. He laughed awkwardly, not catching the weight of the words. But I knew he'd go home, tell Vanessa, and together they'd start spinning a new web to cover the slip. And that was exactly what I wanted. More lies. More contradictions. More threads to pull until the whole thing unraveled. That night, I sat in my office, the oak box open, papers stacked, flash drives labeled. I added a fresh sheet. Ryan's signature on a consultation form, time-stamped with the same day Vanessa swore she was at a networking dinner. The evidence was no longer a pile. It was a fortress, and she was inside, clawing at walls she couldn't see. By Friday, the tension in the house was thick enough to slice with a butter knife. She avoided me, avoided eye contact, avoided silence because silence was the mirror that showed her what she really was. And me? I moved through the house calm as stone. Because I already knew the ending. She thought she was playing defense. She thought I was circling, sniffing for scraps of truth. What she didn't know was that the game was already over. All I was doing now was enjoying the final act. Saturday morning, I woke to the sound of drawers slamming. Not unusual. Vanessa's always been a morning storm. But this wasn't her usual can't find the eyeliner tantrum. No, this was frantic. The kind of slamming that says, I'm hunting for something I'm afraid exists. I stayed in bed, let her thrash around for 20 minutes before strolling into the kitchen. She was already there, face tight, hair half-pinned, pretending to scroll her phone like she hadn't just turned the upstairs into a crime scene. "Morning," I said, pouring coffee. She didn't look up. "Morning." Silence. Thick, deliberate. Finally, she snapped. "Where were you last night?" I actually laughed. "Here. Where were you?" Her jaw flexed, but she forced a smirk. "Out with friends. Don't worry. I know you don't trust me, but that's your problem, not mine." Classic. When the guilty can't deny, they deflect. I took a slow sip of coffee. "Funny, because your friends don't live at Ryan's apartment complex." Her head shot up, eyes wide for just a second before she masked it with a laugh. "Oh, so now you're tracking me? That's disgusting, you know that." I set the mug down gently, like placing evidence on the table. "You want disgusting?" Disgusting is a married woman sneaking into hotel rooms and lying about networking dinners. Disgusting is using her husband's money to wine and dine her boy toy. She slammed her phone down. "You don't have proof." I smiled. "Proof is my hobby." And that's when the cracks spread. She'd been trying so hard to keep her composure, but now, with her back against the wall, the venom came out. "You think you're so perfect? You're boring, Mark. Predictable. Do you know how suffocating it is, living with someone who moves through life like a spreadsheet? You've never made me feel alive." I let her rant. Every word was fuel. Every insult. Another match in a pile of dry leaves. When she finally paused to breathe, I said, "Good. Keep talking. I like it when you reveal your character." That threw her. She expected anger, maybe shouting, maybe me begging for validation. Instead, she got calm cataloging. She hated that. By Sunday, she tried a new tactic, turning others against me. She invited her sister over, pretending it was just a casual brunch. I stayed polite, buttering toast while Vanessa played the victim. "I don't know what's gotten into him," she sighed dramatically. "He's so distant, so cold. Always working in that office. I feel like I'm married to a stranger." Her sister gave me a pitying look. "You two need counseling. Mark, she's hurting." I set down the knife, looked her sister straight in the eye, and said, "Funny thing about hurt. It usually comes from where you least expect it. And sometimes it looks a lot like lipstick stains that don't belong to me." The silence was beautiful. Her sister froze, eyes darting between us, suddenly realizing brunch wasn't brunch, it was theater. She excused herself quickly after that, muttering something about being late for errands. Vanessa glared at me the second the door closed. "How dare you? How dare I what?" "Speak the truth." She spat. "You're pathetic." I leaned in, voice steady. Pathetic is thinking you can destroy a man who already knows how the story ends. Monday came, and with it, her counterattack. I found her sitting in my office chair, rifling through my desk drawers like a burglar. She didn't even flinch when I walked in. "What are you looking for?" I asked. "Evidence," she said bitterly. "If you're spying on me, maybe you're hiding something too." I chuckled. "Projection. Classic. But go ahead, look all you want. All you'll find in there is more proof you don't want to see." She slammed the drawer shut, eyes blazing. "I'm not afraid of you." "You should be," I said softly. "Not because I'll hurt you, but because I'll let you hurt yourself. And you're doing a great job already." She stormed past me, muttering curses under her breath. That night, she tried her boldest move yet. She sat me down on the couch, tears ready, voice trembling. "I want a divorce," she whispered. "I can't do this anymore. You're cruel, controlling, paranoid. I want out." I nodded slowly. Finally, honesty. Her tears stopped mid-roll. She blinked. "That's it. No fight. No begging. Nope." She tried to recover. "Good. Then I'll be taking half the house, half the savings, and—" "Correction," I interrupted. "You'll be taking exactly what the court lets you, after reviewing financial records that prove where every dollar came from. And you'll be leaving with a reputation that doesn't recover once the evidence folder gets where it's going." The color drained from her face. "You wouldn't." I smiled. "Wouldn't I?" Silence. Just the ticking of the wall clock, her breathing shallow, mine steady. Finally, she whispered, "You're a monster." "No," I said calmly. "I'm an engineer. Monsters are sloppy. I build with precision." That night, she didn't come to bed. I heard her pacing the hallway, whispering frantically into her phone. Probably Ryan. Probably some plan to flip the script, turn me into the villain. Let her. The more she spun, the tighter she wound herself in the web. By Tuesday morning, she was brittle, pale, edgy, biting at her nails. Vanessa, the woman who prided herself on being polished, looked like she'd just come off a week-long bender. She cornered me in the kitchen, voice sharp. If you ruin me, you'll ruin yourself too. People will think you're bitter, controlling. No one will take your side. I stirred my coffee, unfazed. People don't need to take my side. They only need to see the facts. And facts don't care about your performance. She slammed her hands on the counter. Why are you doing this? I looked her dead in the eye. Because you thought you were clever enough to win. And someone needed to remind you. You're just the test run. I build machines. And you, Vanessa, are a faulty prototype. Her mouth opened, closed, then opened again, but no words came. She stormed out, slamming the door so hard the frames rattled. I sat there, sipping my coffee, smiling faintly. Because I knew what was coming next. When liars run out of lies, they panic. And when they panic, they make mistakes. All I had to do was wait for hers by midweek. Vanessa was unraveling like a sweater snagged on barbed wire. She couldn't sit still. Phone glued to her hand, whispering into it like a teenager sneaking calls past curfew. Every conversation ended with the same slam of a door, the same frustrated sigh. On Thursday, she tried to get ahead of me. She called for a meeting. Not with me, with my friends. 2 couples we used to double date with. She invited them over for wine, trying to stage an intervention. Mark's been distant, she said, her voice trembling at just the right frequency to sound fragile. He's controlling. Obsessive. I think he's losing it. I let her talk. Sat there on the couch, sipping whiskey, nodding like I was politely listening to a weather report. When she finished her dramatic monologue, I leaned forward and placed a folder on the coffee table. Inside, screenshots, receipts, GPS logs. Her friends froze. One of them muttered, "Oh my God." The other avoided her eyes. Vanessa tried to laugh it off. Those are fake. He's making them up. I simply said, check the timestamps. They match her calendar. Feel free to cross-reference. The room went silent. She flushed crimson, grabbed the folder, and stormed upstairs. The friends left quickly, embarrassed. And me? I sat back down with my whiskey, feeling the trap spring another inch tighter. The more evidence I stacked, the more desperate she became. Friday night, she burst into the office, eyes wild. You think you're smarter than me? Fine. Let's see how smart you are when I take everything. The house, the money, everything. I didn't even look up from my paperwork. You won't take a dime. Courts don't reward fraud. She lunged forward, snatched the papers from my hands, and tried to tear them. She didn't realize those were decoys, copies meant to provoke her. The originals were already in Marcus's safe. When she realized the rip didn't faze me, her face twisted. You're evil. No, I said. I'm patient. That night, she packed a bag, slammed drawers, stomped down the hallway, muttering about Ryan, about starting over, about leaving me behind in my empty house. I let her, watched her march out the front door, suitcase in hand. But here's the part she didn't know. I'd already transferred the deed to my name only. I'd already locked down the accounts. I'd already filed the initial petition. She thought she was leaving me behind. She was really walking into exile. And she wouldn't realize it until it was far too late. Saturday morning, I received an email from Marcus. Subject line, she's going to hate this. Attached were the preliminary filings, time-stamped, sealed, and delivered. By the time Vanessa tried to use the joint account for a hotel booking with Ryan, her card declined. She tried again. Declined. She called the bank, furious. They told her politely, talk to your lawyer. That afternoon, she stormed back into the house, wild-eyed, mascara smeared. What did you do? I leaned back in my chair, calm as stone. What I always do. I prepared. You can't do this to me. You did this to yourself. She raged, screamed, called me every name under the sun. I just let her burn. Because her fury was nothing compared to what was waiting in the oak box. I slid it toward her across the desk. Go ahead. Open it. She did. And inside, neatly organized, were every piece of evidence. Every text. Every receipt. Every photo. Her hands shook as she flipped through it. The color drained from her face. This isn't fair, she whispered. No, I said. Fair would have been honesty. This is justice. She dropped the papers, trembling. You'll regret this. I smiled. I don't regret precision. And for the first time in our marriage, she had no comeback. The court date was set for the following month. Vanessa scrambled, tried to find lawyers, tried to spin stories. But the evidence was airtight. Every move she made only dug the hole deeper. The day of the hearing, she strutted in wearing her best power suit. Ryan slouching in the back row like a discount bodyguard. She smirked at me like she still believed she could win. But when Marcus slid the stack of evidence onto the judge's bench, emails, receipts, GPS logs, even the restaurant footage where she denied Ryan's existence, the smirk vanished. The judge skimmed through, frowning deeper with every page. By the time he looked up, Vanessa was pale as chalk. "Mrs. Carter," he said coldly, "you've left us little choice. Financial misconduct, infidelity, and fraudulent claims mean you leave this marriage with nothing." Her mouth dropped open. "Nothing. Nothing," the judge repeated. Ryan sank in his seat. I didn't smile, didn't gloat. I simply gathered my papers, stood, and walked out. But here's the part no one saw coming, my final twist. 3 weeks later, Vanessa posted a teary video on social media, begging for sympathy. "I lost everything," she said, "because my husband was cruel and vindictive." Within hours, that video was gone. Why? Because I'd sent her the last file from the oak box. A video she'd forgotten existed. One she recorded herself, giggling in a hotel room mirror with Ryan in the background, bragging about how easy it was to milk the boring husband for all he's worth. I never leaked it publicly. I didn't need to. I sent it only to her, with one line attached. "You'll never know when it appears again." That was the real revenge. Not the money, not the house, not even the divorce. It was the quiet weight of knowing I had the trigger, that her entire new life with Ryan would live under a shadow she could never shake. Unexpected? Maybe not for me. But for her, it was the one ending she never saw coming. And the best part? I didn't need to lift a finger. I just let her destroy herself, one lie at a time.